Hello, 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 and welcome back to the IBS Freedom Podcast. Today, we are not talking about IBS. So if you're hoping to learn something, just see you next week. But this one is just for fun. I decided it would be a fun thing for Amy and I to ask questions back and forth and just chat, and you guys could get to know us. I was thinking, favorite TV shows, favorite music, that sort of stuff. But apparently there's some really unique questions and trivia type stuff that we have in store for each other also. Amy did a Google search of interesting questions to ask, so I'm kind of concerned, to be honest. But we will see. But first, I will reveal to you, my friend. So I was just a couple minutes late hopping on this call because I have an animal in my office. And to start out, I have not caught said animal, but it's like a salamander?
Oh, okay.
Lizardy? I don't know. Maybe a skink? I don't know. But it's some sort of lizard-shaped creature with a tail, and it's adorable, but I don't know where it is now because I was unsuccessful. My genius thinking on my feet was to empty out a Genova box and get a paintbrush, and I was trying to herd it into the box with a paintbrush. So far, I have been unsuccessful, but I'm optimistic I will catch him. And I don't really mind the company of the single solitary salamander creature, but I'm a little bit concerned that he is actually a she, and then she will lay eggs, and then I will have an army of little salamanders running around my office, which, again, I don't intrinsically mind it, but I would worry that I would step on them or they would poop everywhere or something. But anyway, that's my morning in a nutshell.
Well, when you said there was an animal, I was hoping you went and got Pop-Tart from the...
Oh, Pop-Tart. Yes, we've, for those of you who don't know, Amy has an adorable dog named Chip, a Boston Terrier, and yes. Chip is about a year and a half old, right?
Yeah, he's about 14 months. I treat him like a child, like a toddler child, where you
Absolutely.
Go... Yes.
Yeah, you've got to do the month thing until you get pretty close to 2, basically.
Yes, exactly.
But yes, and I have shared that I very much want to get another dog, but my husband is being just a little bit of a stick in the mud and doesn't want to get one yet. We lost our previous dog about 2.5 years ago, and literally, not to disrespect Bonnie, but the day after Bonnie died, I was like, I want another one.
Right.
And he's, Mike has been waiting a while. But in his defense, he would be the one taking care of the dog more than me. So I can't be the jerk who's like, we're getting a dog right now. Because then he would have to take care of it predominantly. I would just get to pet it. And, snuggles.
You'd get all the benefits, but exactly. Less of the cons.
Yeah.
That's how I was Mike in the situation before we got Chip. Did you know that?
No.
I was like, I don't want a dog. We should have kids. I don't want to deal with a dog. So I was the stick in the mud. I was so I would shit on the dog idea. No, I never had a dog.
Okay, yeah, what kind of a sheltered life had you had? Now, had Armand ever had a dog?
He says he had, but I honestly think it was a way to get the dog, because I'm like, who's going to train it? We don't know what we're going to do. And he's like, well, I trained dogs growing up, or I had a dog growing up. He would always say that. And he had a dog for when he was 6.
A year. Yeah.
And he's saying that he knows how to train a dog. I'm like, no, you don't. But then...
I'm glad that he fibbed to you, because Chip, that was a solid win-win.
Well, then I realized I actually am a dog person. So the year of 2020 was me realizing I'm a dog person. That was the realization that I had. And now I'm way more obsessed with Chip than Armand is. So...
Yeah. I saw you threw Chip a first birthday party, as you should. So,
correct. All his friends came.
Smother him with all the love.
They had a blast. Well, and it was crazy because it started torrential downpouring in the middle of the party. Oh, no. So then all the dogs had to come into the house. And we're there was 6 dogs just running through the through our downstairs of our house. And then all the owners were huddled in the kitchen. It was funny. It was really fun.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
I mark my words. My goal is to be there for his second birthday.
Right.
And then
yes.
And then I can see all the dog's zoomies and bond over how adorable he is. I get, what would you say, like at least 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week I get chip updates and photos and videos, which I am incredibly in favor of.
Right. Yes.
So Amy's kind of helping me like scratch that dog itch before I get one of my own.
Right. We are both like bad influences on each other when it comes to dogs because
you need to get a second one.
Right.
End of story.
Right. I know. Well, it's funny because I posted on Instagram, like, you know, being just a little sassy. Like, it wasn't necessarily... Did you see it on Instagram? I put, like, Armand... What did I put?
If it was in the stories, then I would not have seen it because I still don't, for the life of me, see the appeal of stories.
Okay. Okay.
But if it was in, like, a feed post, I would have seen it.
I put this picture of 2 Bostons and I said, should I get another dog baby or have a human baby? My husband says I can't have both. You would not believe, I've never had more people respond to any story, like anything I've ever done. I probably had like 25 people like weigh in, like funny. Baby, human, and like it was so divided.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like dog baby, human baby, or like some people are like both, like tell them what you want. Like, you know, it was just really
I'd say
funny.
Both. Well, and like honestly, human babies take a while to cook. You know, it's not like you decide to have a baby and then tomorrow you have the baby. Right. You have to incubate the thing for a while. So that gives you a solid 9 or 10 months, if not longer, to acclimate to having the 2 dogs. So obvious.
I will say, I kind of want I want sort of more of a house trained dog, at least. Like, so, like, maybe like a 2 to 4 year old dog would be kind of what I'd want for the second one versus another puppy. Yeah. But yeah, Chip's just like obsessed with other dogs, and like the amount of times, like we have our trainers like, you need to take him to daycare more because he's like very social, and I'm like, well, the amount of like times I have to take him to daycare instead of just getting another dog, like it's a win-win to just get another dog.
You don't have to convince me, man. I'm with you 100%.
Right.
I'm there. I agree.
But we were talking about Pop-Tart, too.
It's a solid financial investment if you think of it that way.
Yes. Because daycare, it's like $18 a day. If I have to take him an additional day.
The dog will pay for itself.
Yeah. So, I don't know. But Pop-Tart is Nikki's future dog.
So cute. Well, we don't know. I haven't checked the Beagle Rescue in a little while, but Amy and I have gone on the the Triangle Beagle Rescue website on a couple of occasions and looked at the dogs. There's some cuties. My personal dream, which will segue into my first question for you, which I think I know at least one of the answers to, but I'm curious to flesh out the rest of it. My dream, I want to get puppies, and that way, like, they'll have names, but then we could easily rename them to what we want. I want to get 2 puppies and name them Eleanor and Chidi, because probably my favorite TV show of all time is The Good Place, and I want to name them Eleanor and Chidi. And it would be preferable if like Eleanor is really bold and outgoing and Chidi is a wuss. That would be the most perfect situation.
Maybe you could train them into that personality.
Maybe.
Right.
Poor Chidi. Well, and that segues into my first question for you. I feel like one of the good, just kind of like litmus tests as a person to gauge who is Amy Hollenkamp to the D is, what are your top 5 favorite TV shows? I know one. Gosh. I don't know if it's your number 1 still, but I know of one that you have disclosed to me that you are a very big fan of and have been for years.
Right. Well, I mean, I have to say, just from like childhood, my all-time favorite would be Smallville. Is that the one you were thinking of?
That's the one I was thinking. Yep.
Well, I was insanely addicted to Smallville to the point where I'd read spoilers. I would
go to conventions.
Well, no, even beyond that. So the funniest story I have about Smallville. So First off, I'm like Rain Man with Smallville. Like someone could describe an episode to you and I could tell you like the season and the episode number and sometimes even the episode names. That was actually
I've never seen the show, so I'm totally clueless.
That was actually something at my like bridal shower. That was a game where like they had to guess if I knew the episode. It was like weird. Like they were testing me and they would have to like place bets on like if I knew what episode it was.
Yeah, on you. Yeah.
Right. It was funny. But yeah, I was obsessed with that show. It's basically Superman like before he was Superman.
Yep.
But my family was like trying to figure out family trips to go on. This was like going into my freshman year of college. So like between high school senior into freshman year of college, my family was like, where should we go on vacation? Vancouver is like where they wanted to go. And I was heavily pushing that because that's where Smallville was filmed. I think it was like their 8th or 9th season was when we went.
Okay.
So like again, well into like the show. So we went and I made my family, I dragged them to like every location. Like we went to like 5 different locations where it was filmed.
That's adorable. We
went to the set. The worst part, oh gosh, it makes me cringe. We went to the set.
You licked the main character, didn't you?
No.
Like,
I wish, but no, I didn't lick. No one was licked, but I went to the set, and when you're on a set, like we're just kind of circling it like vultures, like, or at least I am. My family's like in the car, like, oh, we don't know what she's doing. Like,
yeah,
I'm literally circling it. Everything's like closed off. There's all these like SUVs going, and I'm like, oh, they're in there, you know, like the people are in there. So you just see all these men staring at you and like whispering on walkie-talkies. Like no joke. Like they're like,
psychopath is doing another lap.
Right. So finally like a guy comes and he's like, this is a closed set. Like nothing's gonna happen. So then it's just like me like, okay. And then we like my family kind of circled and we saw stuff a little bit more, but it was ridiculous. But we went to like the Kent farm, which is like the main thing. But I did meet them later because Armand took me to a convention. And I loved it. I mean, the stars are a little bit more washed up at this point because it's been like a while. But it was really fun going and seeing them in person. But yeah, that would be my favorite. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Outlander is up there. I'm trying to get you to watch it.
Which you just recommended to me, and I have it on my watch later list for Netflix, but I haven't watched it yet.
Right. Outlander's really good. What else? You know what show I really liked? It's called Normal People. It was on Hulu. It's kind of a romance story, but it's like in Ireland. That one was really good. And then I like kind of like the comedies. Like I like The Office. Like the classics.
Yep.
The classics. But yeah, what about you? I feel like I know some of yours.
Okay. The Good Place is probably my number one. Like I could watch that show just on repeat all day, every day. And I usually do, to be honest. I feel like I have to chunk it up. Like I don't even have it organized in my brain. Like some older shows, quote unquote older shows that I liked, some of the classics. My favorite is going to be The Office, which I guess we could call somewhat classic at this point.
Right.
I really loved Friends a lot when Friends was on, and I still watch that. Yeah, those are probably, and Scrubs was really good. And I actually really liked the first couple seasons of Third Rock from the Sun. Do you remember that show at all?
Yeah, it had who's the older guy?
Yeah,
that's now older.
His name. Super famous though.
Right.
Was it Guflo?
John Lithgow. John Lithgow. Yeah.
Yeah, he was fabulous. But yeah, the aliens like trying to figure out Earth, that was fantastic in the first couple seasons especially. More recent shows, I really, really like a show on Netflix called Never Have I Ever. That's been a favorite. I've watched that all the way through several times. And I really am liking The Umbrella Academy.
Oh, so yeah, you told me about that one.
The 2 seasons of that. And I loved Game of Thrones prior to, like... I could get behind almost everything else for Game of Thrones. Okay, spoiler alert, people. Just fast forward if you haven't seen the end. But what rock do you live under anyway?
Right.
I could get behind almost everything if they had given us another season to build up to Daenerys going wacko.
Right.
Like,
right.
I didn't see her going that Looney Tune that quickly. And also, Bran as the king? He did nothing. Right. He did almost nothing the entire show. So anyway, but other than those issues, I loved Game of Thrones so much. And yeah, and then I also have to give, oh gosh, Bran.
He lost one of his wheels. Chip always chews on the wheel because it always falls on the ground. But
well, he's
funny.
Like a magic wizard man, so he will overcome.
Well, it's funny too. We were having like a big like I say big, it was probably 6 people like of watching the Game of Thrones finale.
Yeah.
And my friend, he's just a total goofball. Like when they made Bran or whatever, we should tell people to skip this part if they haven't seen it.
It's been how many years? It's been like 2.5 years. So what rock do people live under?
When he got made king, we just burst out laughing. She's the one that got me that little Bran, because like it just makes us laugh thinking about it. Like what? Like it was just so random. But yeah, I don't know. It ended way too quickly, and like what you're saying, everything just accelerated too much, and it didn't really make sense.
But the production quality and the acting and the music, like everything else about the last season was amazing. So like I feel spoiled complaining about it because it was visually and like otherwise it was a work of art, but just like kind of shit writing. And making her go crazy way too quickly. I'm still Team Daenerys. I still think she was good at heart, and she was just going through a bit of a rough patch.
Right.
But I'm tentatively excited about the prequel that's coming out. I think like that period of time that they're going to be covering is fleshed out enough in the books that I feel like they'll have something to go off of versus the main Game of Thrones books, which are not done yet. So the story runners or whatever, they were just kind of flying semi-blind with that.
Right.
But those are probably my top. Oh, and then I have to have an honorable mention category for anime. My number 1 all-time favorite anime is Sailor Moon. So that has to make it in the mix somewhere. But yeah. I asked you for top 5 and then I gave you like a top 10.
Well, I feel like I don't, I guess I think I gave you 5. Yeah.
I think so. 4 or 5, something like that.
But Game of Thrones was up there for me too. It's just kind of a bummer how it because it sort of leaves a sour taste in your mouth. You're like,
yeah. Well, it was so good.
Right.
In the first, 4 or 5 seasons. I was not in favor of like the whole Arya like assassin plot. I got really bored with her journey to Essos just really quickly.
Right.
Like after maybe like the first day of her being in Essos, I no longer cared about her journey. To be quite honest. Like,
we're done.
Yeah, just like, all right, whatever, Arya. Let me know when you're back in Westeros.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Goodness. Okay, well, I'm curious. What weird questions were you able to pull up on a Google search?
All right, let me pull this up. I was dying. The first question was, what would you name your boat if you had one?
Okay, I do have a boat. Funny enough, did you know that
do?
about me?
I did not.
I do. Yep. So it's a rowing shell. It's a single, so it's 1 person rowing, 2 oars, 1 in each hand. It's about the maximal width is the width of my hips, basically. So it's maybe like 1.5 feet or whatever this would end up being, and then it's about 27 feet long. So it looks like a giant floating toothpick. And then you have oars. I named it my car, funny enough, because my parents, when I graduated high school and I got an athletic scholarship for college, my parents were basically like, sweet, we don't have to pay for you to go to college. That's great. Or like, you don't have to take out loans. That's amazing. We will either get you a used car or a used single. Which one do you want? And I wanted the single. So we ended up buying a used single from my old rowing coach because he happened to be buying a new one and selling his old one at the time. But yes, I named it my car because that was like my choice between the two. I've toyed with the idea of renaming it, but right now the area I'm in is not a super rowing centric location. So like I'm having a hard time finding a place to keep the boat so I can row it. Like there's hardly any boathouses, and a lot of the storage options are outdoor racks. So that just worries me that my boat would get hurt by like a tumbling tree or something. So I haven't really rowed it in a while, but I love that boat.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, so yes, I do have a boat, funny enough.
Excellent.
Not, not like a yacht or something, but
right.
It's my baby.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. I feel like if I had a boat, I don't know what I would name it, but it would probably be something to remind me to put sunscreen on. So if I'm anywhere near a boat, I'm going to get burned.
Yeah, I could see that. You're pretty fair.
So, my husband has never had a sunburn. Just FYI.
I can see that. Yeah.
That ass.
That ass?
Yeah, like I've literally had so many burns in my life. I know everyone was dying to hear about my sunburn horror stories.
Hey, we told them this is a non-academic episode, so they're
right.
listening at their own risk.
My husband, who's like Persian and dark, he tells me Persians don't believe in sunscreen. I don't know if this is a real thing or if it's just his Persians don't believe in sunscreen, but yeah.
He seems like an odd dude, so it might just be Armand.
Could be. It could be. Or his family of some sort. But he's never put sunscreen on.
Well, and I'm curious, if I may, what is your like family ethnic background? Because again, you're pretty fair, so I'm going to guess, do you have some Irish in you?
So it's funny that you say that. So I was told, and I think like direct line is German. Like I'm very German, like directly. Okay. But when I do like 23andMe, so I was always told I was like 60% German, maybe like 20% English, and then like Dutch, maybe the other 20%, something like that. Like it's some blend of that. So when I did the 23andMe, it was like 15% German, like 60% like UK, like Irish, English, and then like I forget the other hodgepodge of stuff, but like majority is English, Irish, but it's weird. Our direct descendants all came from Germany.
Okay.
But maybe like older descendants.
Yeah.
And like what's in my DNA is more English or Irish. So I don't know. It's always interesting doing the DNA stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you have to wonder how accurate is the technology, but also it feels like the DNA sequencing wouldn't lie to you.
Right.
Or it wouldn't get itself confused.
Right.
So maybe the lineage getting passed down generation to generation got a little bit jumbled.
Right. Yeah, it's always really interesting. My grandpa does not believe the DNA test because he has like a lot of like Native American Indian in his family, and it's like not showing up on the DNA test as much as he would think. And so he just like is not a fan of
hogwash
ancestry or like 23andMe. He's like, nope, I'm supposed to be like this much Indian, and it's telling me I'm this much like, I had a great grandfather Wren on the reservation. And so he's like going on and on about it. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, he's not a fan. That's so that's a good point. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what they're spitting out for us? So
mostly Northern European mutt is
correct.
The vague classification.
Correct. Basically what it comes out in my skin is I burn like a whore in a church is my my saying. That's essentially what happens with my skin.
I don't know where I get it, but like I have skin, like I'm pretty fair too, but if I get a base tan, if I'm careful about my sun exposure for like the first few weeks or the first month of the season, and I'm careful to like control how much sun I get without sunscreen, then by the end of the summer, like if I'm darker than this year I didn't get out very much. But if I get a nice base tan, then by the end of the year, I'm to a point where I could be outside for an hour and not burn, which in my book is pretty good. Yeah. But like in the beginning of the season, like 20 minutes I'll burn. So I don't know where, because my mix is largely Swedish, German, French, and British. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who in that mixture would have any capability to tan. Right. But I can tan. I just have to be kind of mindful of it and not burn initially. But yeah, I don't know. Because like it's not even like Southern European. It's all like Northern European again. Right.
Right. Yeah, I just burn and then I go back to white. It's like I'm either red or white. I got two shades.
Yeah. It's very patriotic of you in a way. Well, all you need now is the blue.
Yeah. See, don't punch me or something.
Amy,
bruise me up.
the ultimate patriot.
Oh
here.
Gosh.
Our own Amy. Well, my next question for you, Talabi, is, and you could answer this childhood versus adult or just across the board if you would like to. If you are sick at home with the flu or a sinus infection, what is your go-to thing that you watch when you're sick?
That's a hard one. I haven't.
Or do you not have a consistent go-to?
Well,
maybe I'm the weirdo here.
It's more I haven't been sick for like 10 years. So I have like it's been a long time. If I could say like if I have a really bad period or something, which happens. What would I watch? Maybe some Smallville, some old Smallville episodes. I don't know. I feel like the older I get, and I don't know if I'm like just becoming curmudgeon or something, but I struggle with movies. I don't know if it's like my attention span is being affected by like TikTok and stuff.
Well, we do all have like the Reels and the TikTok.
Right. Yeah. But like there's rarely movies that I like anymore. I don't know what it is. I used to be like a very big movie person. So if I was going to watch anything, it definitely would be a show. Okay. Movies are just, and my husband's obsessed with movies. So it's like always like, oh, we need to watch this movie. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say, I think Office is always good. Oh. That's always a comforting.
So good.
Right. Those would probably be my go-tos if I had to pick.
Okay.
Yeah. And definitely anything that Chip can snuggle up and get behind.
Oh, he will heal anything for sure. His aura is healing.
Right.
To be sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious now, because I thought this was like a universal thing that everybody would have like a go-to.
Oh, gosh.
So people, tell me if I'm crazy about this. So if you're still with us and if you're on YouTube, comment down below and let us know, do you have like a go-to, I'm sick at home, I'm going to watch this? Because I have two very distinct answers. When I was a kid, 100% of the time, The Price is Right.
Oh my God. Ooh, I love Price is Right.
Always The Price is Right. Regardless if I was home from an ear surgery or an ear infection or a sinus infection or strep throat, whatever it was, Price is Right all the way. And my dad, probably because my dad wanted to watch it and I was home with him. But yeah, The Price is Right was our go-to all childhood. It's not the same now with Drew. I'm sorry. I don't enjoy it as much. You have to go back to like the Bob Barker days.
You're a Bobby Barker.
Totally.
Bobby Barker. Okay.
Totally. But in my adulthood, at some point I switched. And now, maybe because Drew is the host and Bob Barker is no longer the host, maybe that's the difference for me now. But now, as an adult, my go-to number one Mean Girls, which still one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, love it.
So good, so quotable. And I think the key is that I could watch it and like half pay attention but still enjoy it.
Right.
You know, like when you're kind of brain foggy and fatigued and you don't have the wherewithal to like absorb a complex movie or a new movie.
Right.
You go to some of the classics. So Mean Girls is usually my first go-to. And then my runner-up would probably be The Office, because that's also one of my absolutely favorite shows.
Well, and now that you're talking about stuff, things are coming to mind from childhood when I was sick.
Okay.
You know what show I used to love? Childhood. And I remember, like, when I got sick, my mom would, like, we would stay up to watch it, is Baywatch. No joke. When I was like 6, between the ages of like 6 to 8, I was obsessed with Baywatch. And me and my neighbor, so I was really good friends with a neighbor who, she was older. She was mentally handicapped. And she and I were best friends, and we loved Baywatch. No joke. So, like, we were pals. Her name was Alexis. She actually passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately. But we would just talk about Baywatch all the time. And when I was sick, my mom and I would watch it because it was on at like 11 p.m.
Uh-huh.
So I'd get to be able to watch it like in real time. And yeah, I was obsessed with Baywatch, and I loved the Barbies. My first grade teacher, she would give nicknames to everyone, and my nickname was Baywatch because I loved Baywatch. No joke. So Baywatch was a big one. I think in college, if I was ever sick during the day, and even like sometimes I'd skip class to watch, if I was like really invested, would be like Maury, like Jerry Springer, like Maury in particular, like the DNA test stuff.
Oh gosh.
Like, if I was really invested, and all of it's probably fake, but, like, if I was really invested, I'd be like, I can either go to class or figure out who the daddy is. So, I'm gonna...
Yeah, you gotta know who the daddy is.
Right. So, clearly my priorities were straight. But I remember watching a lot of Maury in college, like, middle of the day. You know, like, random... I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. And it would just always make you laugh.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I think if you kind of know how ridiculous a show like that is, I'm not going to judge you too much for watching it. But if you were like legitimately hooked and like emotionally invested in the people and the stories, then I would judge you a little bit. It makes me think of, and remind me, you have not watched all of The Good Place, but Armand is a fan of The Good Place, right?
Correct.
Okay, so first of all, if I'm watching Outlander for you, you've got to watch The Good Place for me, because
that's
it's
a deal.
Amazing. And they're both on Netflix, so there we go. We should get this episode sponsored by Netflix at the rate we're going.
Yes.
But there's an episode where like they're doing like this quiz of sorts to determine if you belong in the good place or the bad place. And one of them is, have you ever been on The Bachelor or any of its companion shows, The Bachelorette or Bachelor in Paradise? Or have you ever posted on social media that you were, quote, emotionally invested in the relationships the contestants were pursuing?
Oh my gosh.
And like, if you said yes to that, that was a criteria to go to the bad place. But if you said no, then you were like good place material. It was so perfect. There were some other little questions were like, have you ever had a vanity plate such as, you know, Mike D or boobs?
Oh gosh.
You know, like there's just some random ones. Oh, have you ever microwaved fish in an office microwave? That was another criteria to go to the bad place. And what's funny about that, my husband, when he was in grad school, he had this fellow graduate student who was in the same group, and they shared an office. There was like 4 or 5 grad students in the same office. And this guy, he had so many peculiar little stories about this guy. I think if I remember right, I think that he was from China. So there was also like that quirky little like language barrier.
Right.
He's like, there was sometimes funny things that didn't really translate super well between the languages. But I remember one of the things that the guy would do is he would bring raw fish to work, and he would cook it, like fully cook it in the microwave in this little tiny grad student office with 4 other people in it. And Mike was like, ugh! And Mike will
gosh.
eat fish, but it has to be like cooked well, and he's not super overjoyed about fishy smells, but this guy would regularly microwave raw fish in the microwave, and he would bring in eggs, crack them, scramble them, and then put the raw scrambled eggs in the microwave and just like microwave that as well. And Mike is super like, not super, but he's moderately germophobic, and he's very big on meat safety. I think I told you about this,
right? Yeah.
Very cautious about like meat safety, salmonella, etc. And so I remember he would be like gagging because this guy would be handling raw fish or raw eggs and like crack the eggs, and then he wouldn't wash his hands or wash anything. He'd just be like,
God.
Into the garbage. Okay, microwave. And Mike would be like, oh God.
Oh no.
And then my only other story about this guy is I don't remember exactly what happened, but like they needed to fix one of the shitty desktop computers that was in that grad student office. This guy, he literally, Amy, he got like pliers and he peeled the back of it up. So like the whole like side or the back of the desktop computer was like, the metal was curled up like a tuna fish lid. And he like fixed a bunch of stuff. And then to try to straighten out the bent metal of the computer, he just put a couple of textbooks on top of it and like walked away. And Mike was like, that is never going to go back to normal now.
Oh
like you
gosh.
destroyed the frame of this computer. I mean, it was a junky computer anyway, but Mike was like,
yeah.
Because, like on desktop computers, you can just like pop a couple screws or like it's easy to take it apart. But for some reason, this guy was like, I don't know how to get in here. Peel it like a tuna fish can. And it was just real bizarre.
Oh, God.
Oh, people are so weird.
Oh.
So weird.
Oh, man.
Okay, whose turn is it to ask a question? Because we went on a tangent with that one. I think it's your turn, because I asked, what do you watch when you're sick at home? And again, I'm deeply curious if anybody else has, like, a laid out ritual, because I definitely do.
I was laughing. This question is the second question for fun questions to ask would be, what's the closest thing to real magic? Question mark. We can move on to the next question, too.
We could take this a couple different directions.
I know.
You are assuming that I don't believe in magic, which is frankly a little bit rude and presumptuous of you.
Yes.
But,
sorry.
It's okay. I love you anyway. I don't know. Maybe I watched too much anime growing up. Like, a piece of me believes in, like, magic and ghosts and aliens and stuff. So, I don't know. I don't think it's out of the question that some degree of real magic exists. I think I could be really corny. Like, I could give the cliche corny healthcare professional answer and say the miracle of the human body and its ability to heal itself.
Excellent.
Right? Like, that would be a pretty clutch answer. But yeah, I don't know. I think just the fact that all of these flesh blobs are animated and moving and breathing and have feelings, I think that's pretty freaking magical. So life in general is probably the closest thing.
We're getting real existential.
Yeah,
well,
so
I think that
my official answer is life, broadly.
Yes. Well, I think that that's really interesting, too, just because, like, I think that there's so much we don't know about the human body. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so much we don't know. For as much as we do know, there's so much that we don't know. So, there is a little bit of mystique with the human body and life in general. Totally. I think even, like, and I haven't had a kid yet. It's another fun fact about me. No kids yet, just dogs. But, is that just, like, how you could grow a child? Like, I think that's such a crazy experience. But insane. I will say, can I tell you about my biggest fear when I do have kids?
Yes.
Is I'm worried about my innie belly button becoming an Aldi. It's a big fear. I don't know what's going on inside there and that it all's going to jut out. I don't like that at all.
Okay, well, let me start us off by saying you have much bigger concerns that should be on your radar. Like,
I don't know.
Vaginal tearing. That's a thing. I'm just throwing that out there.
I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm more concerned about.
You let me know when you do, because I can weigh in. And fun fact, there are ways to prevent tearing. Like with my birth with Jess, I still remember like the lady who delivered her was flabbergasted that I did not tear. I had like one very minor tear that required just one dissolvable stitch. That was it. But like they were shocked that I didn't tear more, and I think it's because of the prep. Okay, I'm just going to tell you this. This is TMI.
No, I love. We're really digging deep on this episode.
We're really getting at the heart of the matter of getting to know us. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was researching a lot of stuff, and I have a friend of mine who is an OBGYN, and at the time she was doing obstetrics in a residency, and like I feel like it was on a weekly basis. I was texting her and I was like, Christy, tell me about this. And like, I remember, for example, did you know that if you have vaginal dysbiosis, you can have an overgrowth of group B streptococci? And if you do have that, there's a risk to the baby. I forget what it is, like an eye infection or something, if they go through the birth canal. So If you have this group B strep, which about 20 or 25% of women do, they recommend giving you antibiotics during labor. I was like, what the what? I don't want my kid and myself to have antibiotics right out the gates. So that was one where like I learned about that in like an informational meeting with the birth center that we went to. And I was immediately texting Christy like, what the fuck is this? I don't want to give my kid antibiotics right out the get-go. And she's like, okay, don't worry. Here's the real scoop. But anyway, so I was constantly talking with this friend / mooching off of her knowledge. And one of the things she brought up, she said, hey, I did an internship or something with a midwifery clinic in Australia in undergrad. And she said, I remember one of the things that I learned about there was this device called the EpiNo. So EPI/no. And she said, the best way I could describe it to you, I don't know if this was her words or this is what I've called it, it's a vagina stretcher. That's the only thing I can describe to you. So it's like, you know, a blood pressure cuff, like this thing, and it's got the pump you up thingy to increase the pressure on the cuff.
Yeah.
So it's one of those with the tube, but it's connected on the other end to like a latex balloon or like a bulb. Mm-hmm. And what you do is you insert it vaginally, kind of superficially, because it's really the entrance to the vaginal tract that's the big issue here. But you insert it and then you gradually inflate it until you feel some pressure and some stretching. And then you leave it, I forget how long, like a couple of minutes. But you start doing this like a month or two before the baby is due. And then you can kind of gradually start to stretch the opening a bit. And that way it's not quite as traumatic when you've got this giant baby head coming through. But I kid you not, like, so I ordered one. Fun fact, when I gave birth, when I was pregnant in 2015, we could not get it in the United States. So what I had to do, and I don't know if this is still the case, it was not FDA approved in the United States, so we couldn't get it. I tried to order it and they wouldn't ship it here. So what I did instead, I called up, or I messaged my old roommate from undergrad who's Canadian, and I was like, yo, Maggie, can I mail you my vagina stretcher and then have you mail it to me? And being a good she was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I had it shipped from Australia to Canada, and then my friend mailed it from Canada to me. And I 100%, I swear to God, that is the only reason I did not tear more. I needed one little teeny weeny stitch, and the woman who delivered Jess was like, I don't know how you didn't tear more. Because we had to use the suction cup thing on her. Like, she was stubborn from the day she was born. Jess was not coming out. And I was exhausted by that point. So they had to do combination of like me pushing and the suction cup. And they were like pretty much 100% of women who uses like suction or forceps to get the baby out, like pretty much all of them have really bad tearing. You're the only one who has not. And I was like, yes. Nice. Vagina stretcher for the win.
Oh my gosh.
So, well, 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Okay. Good to know as potentially trying for kids soon. Tell us about Jess. We talked about Chip, and then we're waiting till the end to talk about Jess.
That's okay. What can I say about my kid? So she's my mini-me, first of all, in looks more so than personality. She's got like same hair color, same hair, looks very much like me. She is the most stubborn, strong-willed, independent human I've ever met in my entire life. And for somebody who, honestly, I would not necessarily consider myself super independent. Like, I generally like being with a group and, like, looking for validation from a group. And I'm never, like, in school, in, like, high school and college, I was almost never, like, the leader of a group project. I would contribute, obviously, but, like, I would never be the person who's like, okay, I'm the boss and then I'm going to delegate to you guys. Like, no. So I adore her, but I don't understand her on so many levels because she's just like so strong. I admire her for it though, because the thing is, like, all my life I have been a yes person to the degree that I've gotten walked all over and taken advantage of. Right. And it, you know, a lot of the times, like, I'll say yes to something in the moment and then immediately and for a while thereafter, I will feel like a piece of shit and I'll feel really guilty and like regret saying yes to something when I knew that I wanted to say no. Right. My child will never deal with that emotion. Never. If she wants to say no, she's going to tell you no. And even if she wants to say yes, but she knows that you want her to say yes, she might still tell you no, just to be a little bit of a shit. So defiant, strong. For those of you who know the Enneagram, I am a big old type 9. She is the most 8 Enneagram person I've ever met in my entire life. And it boggles my mind. Future career prospect, in our opinion, for her. Probably the most realistic right now is I think she's going to be a very scary, kick-ass, high-level attorney. Like, you don't want to get her in the courtroom because she's going to trounce you.
Oh my gosh.
And she's not going to give a shit about your hurt feelings when she walks all over you in the courtroom.
Oh
so
gosh.
I think there's that. I could see her being like a CEO, you know, or like a really high-powered mucky muck as well.
Yeah.
And doing really well in like a pressure cooker kind of a job. The other option, which I think honestly is the most promising career for her, is overlord and dictator. Not a nice dictator, to be clear. Like, she's not going to be the president. She's going to be a dictator. She will rule the world with an iron fist. And anybody who comes up against her is probably going to meet an early demise.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's her way or the highway. End of story. But then, you know, I paint her as this like horrible child, but she's so fun. And she's just, I mean, she loves arts and crafts, and I'm getting her into anime. So like I have her into the Studio Ghibli movies, of which I'm wearing a t-shirt special for this podcast episode. So like My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, Castle in the Sky, Howl's Moving Castle. Like, she loves all those movies. We are currently watching Sailor Moon, which brings my heart a great deal of joy because that's one of my favorites still. So yeah, like, you know, she's a very fun-loving kid. She likes to be outdoors. She loves animals. She loves arts and crafts and adventures and, like, going, you know, impromptu trips to get ice cream, impromptu trips to Wegmans, our favorite grocery store, holler. So she's a great kid, but also, like, I would say 95% of the time she's great and amazing and super fun. But then, like, if you cross her, that 5% of the time, she can be scary. So watch out, world. For Jessica Dinezza. The reign
she'll
of
cut
Jessica
you.
Dinezza.
She'll cut you.
Oh, yeah, she'll cut you. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And again, and she will not care if you cry. That's the thing, too, is like, there's... like, I think, again, like, to be an Enneagram dork, like, I definitely have an 8 wing on the Enneagram. So, like, if I get in a particular mood or if it's for work-related stuff, I have the ability to be very opinionated and very, like, take no shit, particularly in my work. But, you know, I'm the kind of person that, like, if I show you any aggression or if I cut you, I'm going to feel horribly guilty afterwards.
Right.
And then I'm going to apologize a million times and try to make it up to you.
Right.
That is not my child. No. No.
Oh, where'd what's your husband? I've never gotten the mindset that he's like that either.
No. I have two theories. One is just that being a parent has given me a new perspective and a new appreciation for the concept of the soul.
Yeah.
And like, we are more than just bags of flesh walking around on this earth. I think there is like a unique, energetic being inside of us. And I don't know, like, I think this particular take no shit energetic being was just floating in the ether until it decided, boom, I'm going to be your kid. And then it just like floated into my belly. So I think I think that's just her spirit. I think that's just the core of who she is. Also, I have a theory. Strong, take zero shit, independent women skip generations in my family. So it seems. So we have my child who is take zero shit from zero people, dominate the world type. Me, by contrast, people pleaser, yes person. But you wouldn't know it from this podcast, but like in my day-to-day life, I'm a little bit more reserved and quiet, and I'm very like go with the flow, keep the group happy.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a hellion, and she's still like, my mom is in a pretty high up position at a university, makes very big decisions all day, every day, like signs off on grants for multiple millions of dollars and doesn't sweat a drop of sweat. And also, like, it sounds like she was quite the hellion in her youth. Like, she broke pretty much every bone of her body, getting into trouble, like doing things she wasn't supposed to, particularly with horses. She was a big horse person. And like, she would jump her horses over things that she was explicitly told not to jump over. And then she would fall off and like break a leg. Or like, I've heard a lot of stories of the pranks that she and her friends pulled when they were in college and they would get into mischief. So for example, I'm going to come back to that because some of them are great. Her mother, my grandmother, mousy, quiet, people-pleasing. One of her kind of catchphrases was, "Can't we all just get along? Aww. We should all be lovey-dovey." Like, if there was any tension in the family, if anybody was even close to fighting, she would be like, "Stop, why can't we all just get along?" Aww. And she was just such a sweet, tender soul. Her mother, my great-grandmother, hell on wheels. Hell on wheels. They called her fluorescent floss because now keep in mind, so my grandmother was born in 1924. I think my great-grandmother was born in like 1899 or 1898, something like that, right? The woman drove a motorcycle, and she drove a motorcycle well into her 80s. And she was known for having a lead foot. She would speed like you wouldn't believe. She would take zero shit from anybody in her life. And she was known to mouth off to cops when she was pulled over for speeding tickets. Like, just bold. And like, one of the family stories I remember is my mom and my grandma and my great-grandma were traveling. My mom went to college in Virginia. I don't know if you knew that. But she went to college in Virginia, and I think that they had driven down to pick her up for like a school break, and they were driving back. And they were driving through like the DC area in cherry blossom season. Mm-hmm. And there was zero availability in any hotel, any motel, nothing. They couldn't find a place to rest for the night. And they found like the one motel that had one single room. And my grandmother had her period and was just kind of like, "Oh, I want to get in the shower and like go to bed and, you know, just, right. I want to go to bed." And for some reason, my great-grandmother did not want to go in that motel. I forget. She got like a weird bad feeling about it. And she was like, "No." And she told my grandmother, because my grandma was like, "Mom, I had my period. I'm crampy. I'm bloated. I'm hemorrhaging my uterus. Like, come on, just suck it up. Let's go. This is the only place with availability for miles and miles. Come on." And she said, "Tina, shove a rag down there and get back in the car. We are leaving. I am not staying here." She told my grandmother to shove a rag between her legs to deal with the period and get back in the car. We're leaving. Like,
oh my God.
What a spitfire. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I have a theory that very strong persnickety take zero shit women skip generations in my family because I have at least the 5 generations of data to support that.
Yeah.
So that's my theory. But let's go back. Can I tell you some of my mom's college pranks?
Sure.
Oh my God. She was such a shit. Okay. So, and funny enough, she is still best friends with her college roommate to this day. Like the woman that she lived with for like the last 3 years of university, she's still best friends with her. So she and Martha got into a lot of trouble together. So for example, there was like a fountain in the middle of campus somewhere, and they put a bunch of laundry detergent in or a bunch of like dish soap in and made it completely like foam over.
Oh my
and made
gosh.
a huge mess. There was, I forget if it was like a dean, or I think it must have been the dean of the school. For some reason, they called the woman Big Bird. I don't know why. I don't know if she had like yellow hair or if she was really tall. I don't remember why she was called Big Bird, but they pranked Big Bird by breaking into her office. This was like my mom and a couple of friends. They broke into her office and they stacked all the furniture on top of it. Like, you know, they put her chair on top of the desk and then like the side table on top of the chair, and then totally vertically stacked every item in that office floor to ceiling. So when Big Bird came into the office the next day, everything was stacked floor to ceiling.
Oh my God.
And then my personal favorite, just to paint the picture. So my mom grew up in Connecticut. Best friend Martha grew up in Massachusetts, and they went to school in Virginia. Neither of them had ever really lived in the Bible Belt before and been like in a super religious area. That, you know, they went to church growing up. Both of them did, but they were never in a part of the world where like everything shuts down on a Sunday. Right?
Yeah.
Which it was more like that back then, and maybe like rural areas of the South now. But they would get really bored on Sundays because they were like, we're not going to church. There's nothing to do. And like the only thing on TV was like evangelical Christian type TV shows, like preacher shows. So they would drive around. They drove around the town, this little bumpkin town. They would drive around the town, and my mom would hide in the trunk of the car. And at the stoplights and stop signs, my mom would jump out of the trunk and she would scream, "Jesus saves!" And then she would go back in the trunk.
Oh my gosh.
The shit out of whoever was behind them. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. But this is the sort of stuff, like, I will laugh about that, but I would never have the guts to do that.
Right.
I am so much of a weenie by comparison. I would never dream of doing something like that, but I can laugh about it now. But yeah. And I realized they didn't tell me any of these stories until like, I think I was in college, because they didn't want to give me ideas in high school. But I laughed because I was like energetically, my being wouldn't even think to do that. Even if you told me about that, like, I would never have the guts to do it because I'm too much of a goody two shoes, and I'm too much of a keep everybody else happy at all costs kind of a person.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So
it's amazing. I love it.
Those are some of my favorite stories about my mom. She would die if she knew well, she's told those stories enough times. I'm sure she wouldn't care, but I thought they were pretty hilarious.
I love it. Love it.
All right, let's see. I feel like we should do another question or two, and then I should probably wrap up in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. I have another obligation to get to. Whose turn is it? I feel like I'm out of clever questions right now for the moment. So if you have anything else to inquire.
I can pull on this list again.
Okay. All I have in my head is like favorite band or favorite music, anything in that kind of realm. But yeah, I'm curious.
These are all a little bit broad. One of them's what will finally break the internet? ? What's the most useless talent you have? I'm trying to think of that for myself, too.
The only thing I could think of, and I don't think it's even really a talent, but I'll just throw it out there. So my mom has the weirdest feet that you've ever seen in your life. I think I might have told you she was semi-recently diagnosed with Charcot-Marie tooth disease. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah. If you Google Charcot-Marie tooth foot it'll pop up with these really freaky looking feet. And like, that's my mom's foot. So she has this really high arch. Like her arch is like 3 inches tall.
Oh my gosh.
And she has hammer toes that curl under, and like her foot's really wide and really stiff and immobile. And anyway, she's had it all her life. Her feet have been freaky all her life, but she just got diagnosed with this condition, which is the reason for the freaky feet. She just got diagnosed with it like 6 months ago, which was a weird revelation to have when you're in your 60s.
Right.
But okay, for whatever reason, like her immobile freaky feet, comparatively, my grandfather and we would practice fanning our toes. And for whatever reason, that would just totally gross out my grandmother and my mom to no end.
Oh my gosh.
And so that would, I don't know, we had this thing where like randomly my grandfather and one of us would be like, fan with me. And we would both put up our feet and like fan out our toes, you know? And my grandmother and my mom would be like, oh, stop. So I don't know if that's a talent technically. As my grandfather would say, it's about as useful as pockets in underwear.
Oh my gosh.
It's definitely a useless talent. I don't know if we can classify it as a talent, but I am pretty good at fanning out my toes and really getting a lot of space between my toes. So that is mine.
Wow. Dang. I don't know if this is useless, but I got a lot of stage presence.
Okay.
You know, like for dancing, like I don't really have much shame, like to dance like a crazy person.
Okay.
Same thing with like karaoke. Like I don't have talent per se.
No, yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But it's talentless. But there's no shame with it, and there's a lot of effort and presence to the performance.
Yep. I like that. I think that's a talent. I'm going to give it to you. Now, I will follow that question with my final question, which is, and you can answer this I'll give you 2 and you can answer in whatever way you choose. My first question is there a song lately that you cannot stop listening to? And my follow-up to that is, what are some of your favorite bands or singers or musical artists?
Good question. So probably the song that I've been listening to a decent amount lately, and it's just because I've started the guitar lessons. I think I told you this.
Yeah.
Like a month or so ago. I'm still pretty bad, but it's coming along. My teacher says I'm doing above average. So, you know, not to brag.
Chicken dinner.
Right. But the song I'm learning on the guitar is Wonderwall by Oasis.
Uh-huh.
So that song we kind of listen to just to like get the rhythm of it a bit. I would say I have very eclectic tastes in music. Like there's not, like 1 second it could be ABBA, like the next second it's like folk, something or other, and then the next second it's rock. Like I'm all over the board. Probably what I don't like is like modern country. There are very few moments where I do. Like if I'm with friends and we're on a boat or something, like maybe, like if there's if I can kind of connect with the vibe, maybe, but usually country and like rap are the 2 that I connect with least. In terms of artists, like I love Fleetwood Mac.
Classic.
Who else do I like? Again, I just have really eclectic. Some of the people I like too aren't overly famous. Like by like where a lot of people would know them. I'm looking at my list of stuff. I don't know. I'm like really drawing a blank here. Let's see.
I feel like you answered that pretty well now.
I've been listening ABBA a lot lately. ABBA's coming back.
Doing like a virtual tour kind of thing, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and they're just coming back in general.
Yeah, they had a recent album or a recent single, right? I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I think they have 2. I heard one's kind of slower and one's faster. I haven't listened to it either, but I love ABBA. My favorite story about ABBA is So I went to University of Kentucky for undergrad, and a lot of my friends are from Northern Kentucky, which Kentucky borders Ohio. So like Northern Kentucky is 15 minutes from me, and I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio right now. So a lot of my friends live in kind of the Northern Kentucky area, but one of my friends lives kind of in the back, like more of a backwoodsy part. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit more rural, but like, 10 minutes from normaldom. Like it's not that deep. But there's this bar called the Corner Bar, and they served like the cheapest beer. This was like in college, but like you would go there and like a horse would be in the bar. Like at one point there was like a horse in the bar, and I was like drinking, and like I'd get on the horse and like we'd take pictures, and like everyone would drive like their ATVs there. So it's like all these people that like it's a whole vibe in there. And then like we have us who are like, a group of like 4 girls and maybe like a few boys that were dating the girls in the group, going to this bar that's like primarily like middle-aged men. Yeah, kind of more rural feel. Yep. Like who drove 4-wheelers to the bar, and we're going and they have a jukebox, and my friend brings this huge bag of like quarters, and it's just ABBA like on repeat. Like all the bar people are like, "Oh my god!" Like,
is it
tell
like
them not to...
the John Mulaney story? Do you know that story?
No, I don't.
Oh my god! All right. So first off, that's another assignment. Watch all of John Mulaney's stuff on Netflix. Right. So when he was, I think, a teenager or something, he and his best friend went to a diner with a jukebox, put in a whole bunch of quarters, and they played What's New Pussycat? They put it on repeat like 27 times in a row or something. God.
Yeah.
And what they did though is they played it like 11 times, and then they had a different song. Right. And then they resumed. So he tells this story how like, nobody knows that it was them.
Right.
And they're just sitting there like drinking their milkshakes or whatever, and they're looking around watching all the people go insane slowly but surely. Right. Like, is it playing again? And then finally there's a different song, and he was like, you could sense the palpable relief in the room where everybody was like, oh, thank God that song is over. And then the next song was What's New Pussycat, and everybody just lost their shit and was like, no!
Oh my god. Yeah. Well, so we would do ABBA, and like we would dance around like idiots, like in this bar where there's horses and stuff, and the guys are like, oh my god, like this is so annoying. But then another time when we were drinking, and maybe it's like the same app or something, my brother-in-law had an app where he could like skip the line of the jukebox. Like it was an electrical like not an old school jukebox. It was like one that you could like put money in. Right. So he could skip the line. So he would do like, if you're happy and clap your hands, or like, he'd put all these songs and people would get so mad. It's funny. It's funny. I like being a little jerk sometimes.
Well, you have to watch that John Mulaney bit now. I know I think it's on YouTube as well, just the clip. But, oh my god, yeah, he tells the story so much better than I do. But he's one of my favorite stand-up comics, and it's just so priceless. And you can picture him being a little shit sitting there like...
Right. Yeah.
And they actually had to unplug the jukebox eventually because everybody was losing their minds.
Oh my god. What about your favorite musicians?
Okay, also very eclectic. All over the place. Right now, the song that is deeply embedded in my brain and I cannot get it out is BTS Dynamite. I can't stop singing it in my head, and I can't stop watching the music video because, oh my god, those boys have moves. Have you watched BTS ever? Because, man, they can dance. I'm sending it to you after we hang up. It's so good. So, yeah, I kind of like... This is surprising because I have loved anime since I was like 11 or maybe 10. I don't even know. So I've loved all things Japan since I was like 10 or 11. And I only kind of discovered K-pop in the last like, year and a half. And like Blackpink, ITZY, BTS, those are the 3 that I've really discovered so far, but they're so good. And man, do they have moves. I actually showed Mike last night. I showed him an NSYNC music video from back in their heyday. And then I showed him a clip of the BTS music video that I've been watching on repeat because I think I'm slowly driving him insane because he's hearing it the whole time. And I was like, you don't understand. When I was a kid, when I was a kid or a teen, the boy bands were like the pinnacle of amazing dancing. And then you watch Backstreet Boys and NSYNC dancing now, and you're like, they're pretty basic, actually.
Right.
They're really not very skilled dancers. I love them, for sure. But, like, you watch them now, and you're like, why were we impressed by this? But then you watch BTS, and you're like, damn.
Yeah, like next level.
Totally. It's boy bands evolved. So, yeah. So I'm kind of big on BTS right now. I discovered them late in the game. I realized they've been around for like 8 years, and I just discovered them like in the last few months. But better late than never. Otherwise, I'm all over the place. So I grew up on a lot of classic rock. So like Fleetwood Mac, Journey, I'm trying to think, like some Beatles, but not a ton of the Beatles. Like basically whatever would be like on a classic rock station, pretty much. Like Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. I grew up listening to a lot of, and I can pretty much like sing all of those songs by heart, I think. And I love them all. When I started going out with my husband, his favorite bands are Genesis and Rush. So I got much more into those. Like I knew some of the songs, like I knew their hits.
Right.
Because I grew up like listening to classic rock and like 80s rock a lot. So I knew Genesis and I knew Phil Collins and I knew some Rush songs. But now like I know all of the library of both of those bands. And I enjoy them. I'll put those on organically as well. I like a lot of 90s rock bands as well. So like Foo Fighters, like older Green Day, Weezer, like I guess, yeah, they were like 90s and 2000s. So I like a lot of those. The last concert I went to pre-pandemic was Weezer, and man, did they put on a good show. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
So good. Yeah. And that if I wasn't listening to classic rock with my parents dictating the music that I was listening to, like in the car, I would probably be listening to Backstreet Boys or Spice Girls growing up. Those were my jams. I was the self-professed #1 fan of the Spice Girls, not to brag.
Okay, yes.
I had a poster. It was pretty bona fide.
Excellent.
So definitely like that. At the time, I was kind of anti-NSYNC because at the time,
you had to choose.
I'm a little older than you, so I don't know if you know this, but you had to pick sides. You could not say that you liked Backstreet Boys and NSYNC in like the late 90s, early 2000s. You had to pick your allegiances and stick with it. So I was Backstreet Boys all the way. I thought that NSYNC were a bunch of lame-o loser faces. Posers. Yes, I did not like NSYNC just out of principle of the thing. But then in like, I don't know, like college or grad school, I kind of went back and I realized, I actually like NSYNC. I just, it was like the war of the boy bands. Yeah. And then more recent stuff. I don't love a lot of recent artists. It takes a lot to really like. Well, okay, no. I like Lady Gaga, and I'll listen to her stuff pretty organically. I really like Dua Lipa right now, which I primarily discovered because of the Fitness Marshals channel. But Dua Lipa's got some really good stuff that's catchy. Like I said, K-pop for sure I'm into right now. I feel like there was another one I was going to share. I can't think of it at the moment. And then my one last one, if you like anything folky, you might want to check out a band called Carbon Leaf, if I haven't told you that about them already. It's real, like, even their own portfolio is very mixed because they've been around for a while now. They're from Virginia, but especially their latest album is very, like, folky, and I really like it. Like, a lot of, like fiddle and banjo kind of stuff. But they're really, really skilled musicians. So, like, for Mike, my Mike is a drummer, but he also knows how to play bass guitar, and he dabbles in like keyboard and guitar and like a lot of other instruments. And I think for him, one of the reasons he really loves Genesis and Rush is because they're very like technically advanced.
Right.
Like their songs are very difficult to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very challenging for him as a musician. I got him hooked on Carbon Leaf, and even my snooty husband is very impressed by like the skill that the musicians have, especially like there's one guy who plays a gazillion different instruments depending on the song. So he's particularly impressed with Carbon Leaf. So he's been playing that. But yeah, if you like anything folky, you might actually really like Carbon Leaf. Some of it is a little bit more popish, but their recent stuff is very folky.
Nice. Do you know what band I feel like I like that's more recent? They just released an album not that long ago. Is Haim. Have you heard of Haim? Haim. They're three sisters.
So no.
They're really good too. You should check them out. They kind of have like an old school vibe to them. Like I feel like they almost sound a little 80s at times.
Okay, I dig.
But they're three sisters, and they're so funny. Like if you look them up on YouTube, they're just really funny people. But they're really good. They have some really good music.
Okay. I just plugged it into a YouTube search so I can watch some of that on my break later. There was another one. Very different than anything else that I've said, but Aurora?
Oh yeah,
also very good.
They're on TikTok. That's how I know.
Okay.
That's how I know.
I only found out, so I didn't know about her. But she was. Have you watched Frozen 2? You did, because you have nieces, right, that were into it? Yes. A, excellent movie, but B, you know that voice that's like,
yeah,
and it's like calling Elsa?
Yeah.
That voice is Aurora. And when you look at, like, I downloaded the album on, like, Amazon Music or whatever, and when I was doing that, it would say, like, the credit in the title, it would say, like, whoever the voice of Elsa is, I forget her name, and Aurora. And I was like, who's that? And I looked her up. I really like some of her stuff.
Oh, cool.
So that's another kind of like random feeling one. But yeah, I bounce all over the place. The only things I don't really love, I don't love country generally. Yeah. Rap I'm hit and mix with. If it's more like 90s style rap or like early 2000s rap, like,
like Thong Song, Cisco.
Well, I'm picturing that, or even like Eminem kind of style. Like,
okay, yeah.
I like that, especially for working out. But if it's like the really hardcore kind of rap, and if the lyrics are too over the top vulgar,
right,
then I don't really care for rap. Country, pretty universally, it's hard for me to get behind country, with the exception of a few songs. And I don't especially like jazz as far as like listening to it. It depends on. I feel like if it was part of like a movie, or if it was part of something, or if I went to like an actual jazz bar, I'd be fine with it, because I know it takes a lot of technical skill to play the music, and it is interesting music. But I think I generally like music that has words.
Me too. And I will say the only like country, I would say, person that I like a lot. Well, there's two. Shania Twain. She's good. Dixie Chicks, and now they're called the Chicks.
Interesting. Did not know
that. The
Dixie Chicks have some good stuff, yeah.
They just did a new album, and it is so juicy. It's so good. Really? It's like her whole album is basically her like writing about her husband that cheated on her. Like every song is like, that's ooh, fabulous. Like it's like, oh my god, this is like intense, but it's really good. It's a really good album.
Okay, so I do enjoy some Dixie Chicks songs. Shania Twain, for whatever reason, my grandfather could never remember the name of Shania Twain, because she was pretty big in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
So it would come up like on the radio, and I kid you not, my grandfather called her Shinga Twang once.
Oh my god.
And we were like, what now?
Oh, Grandpa.
Because that's when, like, the Soak Up the Sun song came out. It was around that period. And yeah, he called her Shingatwang. I shit you not. And we almost died. So my mom and I still call her Shingatwang on a regular basis. But I liked some Rascal Flats.
I did in the day. I liked some.
Yeah, they got
some
good stuff. And, Carrie Underwood. Like some of her early stuff, like, Before He Cheats, or those are some pretty good ones. Okay, maybe I like more country than I thought. And also, I've always been a fan of Taylor Swift. From, the early country-ish stuff to the pop stuff. I like all of her stuff. Like, unanimously. So, yeah. So I guess I do like some country.
Yeah, you do. You have it sprinkled in.
I think
it's more of like the
pop female country singers. More so, like, I don't really listen to male country singers ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we gave the fans, dare I say we have fans, I feel like we gave the fans a lot to marinate on, and they had the opportunity to really get to know Amy and Nikki. Like, who are we? What makes us tick?
Right.
What keeps us going every day, and what kind of adorable puppies do we have to look at? Like, I think we covered the really important aspects of our life, certainly. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, kind of non-academic, non-nerdy for once. And next week we're going to get into hormones, and this is going to be a multi-part series. So we will be talking quite a bit about hormones and their influence on the gut in the next couple of episodes. So brace yourself for that. Look forward to it. Mark your calendar. Tell all your friends. It'll be a grand time. And in the meantime, my dear, I have a Zoom meeting to get on. So I'm going to hop off this meeting and hop on my other one.
All right.
Until next time, my darling.
Yes, exactly.
Bye.
Bye.